Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel, and we're back at Auto Shack on the Mk3 20 valve turbo conversion. We have been flying with progress on this. We've got the engine all in, running, all the intercooler made into the bumper. Everything is spot on from the bulkhead forwards. But at the moment, this is just a stationary engine. It's got no controls, no gear stick, no pedals, and that is what we're going to do this week. So it has been stuck on the ramp and I can't get the doors open. But now we're at the point of being able to get the wheels back on, get it on the floor, move it off the ramp, and I can do the pedals. So what we've got to conquer today is get the drive-by-wire pedal mounted inside the car. And because this was an 8-valve GTI, we've gone from cable clutch to hydraulic clutch, so we need to connect all that up. We're also going from a rod gear shift to a cable gear shift, so we've got to get that in as well. Luckily, because the Mk3 came with all these, it's going to be very easy to install. And with them in, by the end of this episode, we're going to have it on the floor and we can actually move it forwards and backwards, sitting in the driver's seat. So that is the aim of the day, to drive it across the workshop. So let's crack on.
So first off, we need to change the gear selector as it's still up in the air, because our old setup was the earlier rod setup for our earlier gearbox. With our new gearbox, we have cable change, but as it's out of a Mk3, that's going to bolt straight in. So let's get these in like that, and all in. Cables run up to the front and that all seals nicely up to the floor. Alright, and we have all our gears. Right, let's get this off the ramp so I don't have to keep leaning in through the window. So here are our Mk3 pedals. Pretty standard: accelerator, brake, clutch. Brake is the only one that is staying as factory. Accelerator was on a cable, and you can see at the back there's a linkage that moves. Because we're on an 8-valve, we had a cable clutch as well. So as you move the pedal, you can see an arm at the top there. Pulled the clutch cable and that disappeared through that tube. But we wanted to convert it to hydraulic. Just had our Mk3 clutch master cylinder turn up, so that's a direct replacement. So I've just unbolted the little blanking panel that also was the stop for the pedal. So that comes out. This goes in. And luckily all the holes were there, so we just bought a master cylinder. That bolted straight in, that clipped straight into the pedal, all the brackets, everything already there. So we just had to unbolt the blanking plate, push this through, and it all clipped in and working. So that is the hydraulic conversion done. Thank you, VW. So what we've got to do for the accelerator pedal is we've got our electronic drive-by-wire TT one. So we need to get that up in there to work there. So we need to get this pedal out of the way. And with the linkage at the back there moving, it actually goes all the way through and comes out the other side. So in the bay, the cable actually came out this side and through and around, even though the pedal is on this side. So the hole must be in the same place on left-hand drive and right-hand drive. So that does mean we've got a linkage that runs all the way under the heater matrix inside the car to the pedal that is right over here, and then the cable attached just there and went round. Now I have found a few companies that do make off-the-shelf mounts, so you bolt that to the mount and then bolt the mount into there. But we're between Christmas and New Year at the moment, so we can't get anything here, so I'm just going to make up a little plate for the back of here. But looking around, there is now some really nice bolt-on brackets that will work in a Mk2 and a Mk3. So let's clear some space and look at where we're going to put our mount. We've also got some wiring to come down here. We've got a clutch switch to go in for the 20 valve loom. Luckily, the Mk3 has already got a hole there for a clutch switch. We've also got our brake switch for the ECU as well, to disconnect the drive-by-wire throttle so you can't press both pedals at the same time. And luckily up there, we've also got another hole ready. So the Mk3 is fully equipped. And the last wire we've got to run through is for the OBD port. I thought I was going to have to put an OBD socket into this, because I thought this era of car was still OBD1 with the little plugs that are in the middle. But it turns out Mk3s are OBD2 ready. So we've already got our port. We'll just connect up to that. Pretty stealthy, hidden there. So to take that linkage out, you need to take the heater matrix out, which we're not going to do. So I'll probably just cut that off. If we look from the passenger side, under here, this is the throttle pedal. But the linkage is behind even all the sound deadening, so we're not going to get that out. So I've just cut around it with the multi-tool there, so you can see where it goes underneath all the sound deadening, and that bracket there with the bolt goes all the way from side to side, which then goes under the heater matrix and all the HVAC. So we're going to have to cut this out in sections to be able to get it all out. Definitely a strange setup, why the throttle pedal will be one side but the throttle cable connects on the other side. And it's the first thing to go together on the interior. Less than ideal for me. So I've just cut the end bracket off with the multi-saw. So now everything is loose. So I'm going to chop this arm off, and hopefully then we can feed it all through that way. Not the easiest place to get to. And just got through. And we're off. So that's where the throttle cable attaches to, up there. There's our pin. Now let's see if we can get our bar out from the driver's side. So on this side, the bar's now a bit loose, but it's not going to come out with that still attached. So get a little choppy here. See ya. It's getting looser, but I can't quite get it out just yet. A bit more chopping. And the last piece. So here is our Mk3 pedal. So the pedal is all the way at that end. That doesn't actually do anything at all. And that is where your cable sits over the passenger side. So that's why you have to chop it, because that is the first thing that goes into the car. And that's all done with the multi-tool. It's really handy because you can go straight in where access isn't that great, and also it doesn't create sparks like a grinder would. But now we've got room for our drive-by-wire pedal. So I'm going to make a plate up that fixes in there, and that will sit in its right place. So this is another pedal box we have got. I think this was out of a Mk2, but it's been modified to take the throttle pot out of a CRB foot or something like that. So it's still got a manual pedal, and that links across. And like in the Mk3, we've got this little stick, but our Mk3 carries on all the way over here and goes up. But this one actually moves a little potentiometer, which is on a cable. And you can repin the plugs to work with the Audi TT system. So that is one option, but we haven't got any of this bracket in ours, so we'd have to take the whole pedal box out to be able to fit it, which I don't really want to do. But this is another way of doing it. Back on our donut, sitting here, let's see what the pedal mount is like in this, whether we can use it or not. So it's not bolting, it is welding, but we've just got 3 spot welds. I think that's all that's holding it on. That'll save me making up a plate. Ta-da! Thank you, Audi. And then we have our mount that bolts straight on with our bolt holes. So there we are, all nut and bolted on. And the other good thing about this plate is it's the throttle stop as well. So you're not putting all the stress on the plastic hinge, you got the proper pedal stop. So let's see whereabouts we can mount this. You want it somewhere around there. And I know the Boost Fabrication one uses those 2 bolt holes, so I think I'll do similar. And this is what I've come up with. So we've got a bracket going back to those 2 bolt holes, just like the Boost Fabrication one, just not quite so CNC'd, but I have just put another bracket there, because what I was finding is because the bracket's all the way at the top, every time we pushed down it, it was kind of twisting. So I've just put that little foot there, which goes onto that little peg there. So let's bolt it back in. But I think we can confirm that's not going anywhere. And that is the pedal all in. Super happy with that. And because we have got our back plate there, that means we're not putting any stress on it. That's bottoming out where it should be. Got all our pedals. Let's get the wiring in. So wiring wise, we left our plugs out from wrapped up in the loom that we need to go in the cart. So we've got our blue plug, which goes straight to the throttle pedal. We've got our Kline for the OBD port. We've got our clutch switch, which came out of the white plug. And then we've got our brake switch, which is still on the black plug. And what I'm going to do is use this nice big grommet down here, which used to be for the clutch cable, and that will pop these in where they need to go. I don't really want to cut the blue cable, so I might de-pin it just to get it through the hole, but that'll drop down exactly where we need it. So we've got our clutch switch at the TT. Hopefully that's going to go straight in We've got our brake switch. This was coming up with an intermittent fault on the TT when we done a scan before we got it in. So we got a brand new brake switch from that. And then we have got our OBD port. But as we just found out, we have already got one. And then we've got our throttle pedal, which is just plug and play. That plugs into the throttle pedal and that plugs into the Mk3 hole. So let's get these slotted in, and then we can wire up to them. I've actually managed to stretch that grommet out to get the plug over, so we can pop that through, and then that will return just to a wire size. It's like it's giving birth. Oh. And we're through. So now we can take that up, put a cable tie around that, be fully sealed to the bulkhead. I've noticed before on the wiring diagrams for the switches on the TT, they have these, they call them suppression filters on the in and the out of the brake light switch, and that goes to all the brake lights and to the four-wheel drive system. It's always heat shrunk up, so I thought I'd unravel it to see what was here. And what it is it's got a big capacitor that goes between them. This is the power in to the brake lights, and then that's the power out. And they're actually linked together with this capacitor. And it's got this big coil of wire. I'm not really sure what the purpose of that is. Obviously we don't need it for our Mk3. We've got our standard Mk3 brake switch here. So we've got power coming in, goes through the switch and goes out to the brake lights. So we can use this power to power our clutch switch and our sensor for the brake switch. And we can join the power into the 4-pin plug, and that'll just send its signals back to the ECU. So let's get all these plugged in and wired up. And here they all are. Before I heat shrink it up, we've got them all crimped in. So we've got our main power in from the Mk3 brake switch loom, which is the red and yellow, and that powers the feed for the brake lights, the feed for the sensor, and the feed for our clutch switch. So we're using all three powers together. That's pin 1 and 2 on here, and then the blue and black on the clutch switch. Then we've got our clutch switch out, that goes up to the ECU, same colour wires, white and red. We've got our signal brake lights up to the ECU, same colour wires, white and yellow. The ECU also likes to see a signal on the brake light side. I'm not sure why. Maybe that's just to check that the switch is working okay. So we can heat shrink these together now, so they'll be all nice and safe. And then everything is plug and play into our pedals and all heat shrinked up. So we've got our clutch, brake and accelerator. Are we in an Audi TT? No, we are in a Mk3 Golf. The other thing I took off the TT, if you remember, was the pedal covers to match the accelerator pedal. So I've just popped off the Mk3 one, which is just a rubber boot, and these are pretty much the same. They look about the same size, so I'll see if I can get that on there, get the brake one on, and then all three pedals will match. One on, and the brake pedal has a little hole in the middle, which a big grommet goes through to keep it located. So does the TT ones. Hopefully this one will go on as well.
So that's all three pedals taken care of, all wired up. The last bit of wire we've got running down here is for the OBD port. So on the TT, you have the grey and white wire comes from the ECU directly and then comes down into the cabin and into the OBD port. What VW did on this era of cars, I'm not sure why, they run their Kline wire from the ECU into the immobiliser and then out of the immobiliser and then to the OBD port. So that's why I didn't connect it up in the engine bay and why I brought it down in here. So another new thing that I've discovered in Mk3s is they actually have a Kline buzz bar. So there are a few new modules in this. We've got airbags, we've got ABS and we've got ECU. And all the wires come together to the fuse box and they've got a little buzz bar of the Kline and they all plug in. So I've just dropped the fuse box down, and if you look here on the top where all these slots are, these are all slots for Kline input. And there's our grey and white wires, and one of them is a yellow that goes to somewhere. And what these are just little individual plugs, and they all join together on this buzz bar at the back. They all just connect together, and then that all goes to the OBD port up there. So all we need to do is just link into this buzz bar. Shame I haven't got one of these plugs that we could just plug in, but I can just link into the wire and that'll make it all nice and easy. So we've got these two, all individual, doesn't matter where they plug in because it's all just one long buzz bar. And then that flies across to the OBD super highway and goes to our OBD port. I've just slid that off its mounting and there you can see down in the bottoms are the terminals all joined together. And then we just got our individual plugs that go into that. That's a pretty nifty idea. So this is like the very first CAN bus data module. So I was just double checking. And they are all connected. All except for the yellow wire and these 3 pins here. So everything on the back is all connected except for these three. So obviously I couldn't let that lay unknown, so I've just gone back to the wiring diagrams, and the diagnostic on this is K-line and L-line. So K-line is what we use on the diagnostics from the OBD port, and that's what we get all our signals through. But there is L-line as well, which isn't actually used, but that's what those pins are for. So if it needs to communicate with anything using full K-line and L-line protocols, that's where you plug it in. But we don't need it, but we know. And that makes sense why these two are on a plug by themselves, because this goes to the OBD port for our K-line and our L-line, and then our little Ks join in here. So out of these three, we'll have engine, ABS and airbag, and they all buzz together down to the OBD. So it'd be nice if we did have a little plug, we could just pin it in here. So all I'm going to do is just join it into one of these. All done, and it's cool where it slots into the little slots. I've only ever seen fuses and relays in them before. That is pretty cool. So I'll put all this back up and get all this interior back in. And we're all back together. Interior is all back in with 3 matching pedals, which I think that has finished it off nicely. The TT pedal covers went straight on, no mods, no chopping. Exactly the same pattern. And now they match perfectly. Got all the dash trims back in, all the clocks, the switches, center console all back in. And because we're still using a Mk3 shifter, it's got all the points for the trims to go back in, and a Mk3 gear knob and surround all go back on. We've got all the dash in, our OBD port is all in and working. So as it turned out, we didn't need to take the clocks out because the temperature gauge works perfectly, the rev counter works perfectly, no mods were needed. So really the hardest part of this conversion was getting the old pedal out from there. Everything else has bolted straight in. If you'd have bought the bracket to bolt the drive-by-wire pedal straight in, that would have been a full bolt-in conversion. And I've just finished off where the loom goes through. So we've got our wires going through our grommet there. What I did was I wrapped a little bit more insulation tape round to fatten up the loom and then taped it all in place. Because this does get wet from the screen under here, so we don't want any water running through straight into the cabin. So that is perfect, just like a factory boot. So now we can get the wiper linkage back in, get the scuttle back on, and we just got the final thing to finish. We've got accelerator working, brake working, clutch not yet connected. And if we look down the back of our engine, you'll see the other side of our master cylinder. So it's got 2 outlets, it's got an in and an out. We've got the inlet there from the reservoir, which is up here. And the standard Mk3 GTI one does already have an outlet on it. They just crimp it off if it's not needed on that model. So all we've got to do is run a pipe from there to there. Then we've got the outlet, which will go from that fitting down to our master cylinder. You can see it, nice new shiny one down there. Because ours was a cable clutch, we haven't got the hard line that links them together. We probably could find one from a scrapyard, but most likely they're going to be pretty badly deteriorated by now. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make up a braided line to go from the master to the slave, just like we would in a Mark 1 or 2 conversion. We've got all the bits and banjos here, so I'll just make that up, link the two together, and that will get the 3rd pedal working. I had to sift through our stock a bit, so we hold all the banjos on the shelf for making up brake lines and that. Problem is, we've only got 10mm banjo holes. What we needed was 12, so we got on rectification. These are the kits that we use for the Mark 1 clutch kits and that. They do sell the fittings on their own. They're the 3-piece where we put them together with the braided hose. So we've got 2 sizes, this size for the slave cylinder, this one for the master, and that will fit in the bay. So from the master cylinder, I'm going to put that little angled one and run it behind that heat shield with the other brake lines. And it's going to pop down here to the slave cylinder, and I've got the 90-degree one there, so that'll go straight back to the bulkhead. So now we've got a to and a from, we can cut this down to fit. End on, pull it in, and fit it on. Do that up. Done. That's the rear end, fits perfect, even clips into the standard clip that comes around. I've marked where I want to cut and the orientation of the fitting, so let's get that on and all connected. So that's all piped in. Just put a little P-clip down the back, and now we need to work on the feed. Like I said before, the reservoir's already got an outlet for it. It's just sealed as the factory, so we just need to go from there to there. I've got the Audi TT one, which was a metal pipe, but it doesn't quite fit, just a little bit too long. So I'll just put a rubber pipe from there to there, and that'll be plumbed in. Just drain the level down a bit so we're not leaking. And then all we've got to do is snip the end off.
like that. And with a bit of shortening, the Audi TT pipe does actually fit in there nicely. I just shorted the metal bit, now we can fill it back up. So that is the system all installed, looking nice and tidy in there. That TT pipe's really finished it off to a factory look. So now let's pressurise it up and bleed it through. And then we just need to go on the bleed nipple there. And if we crack that off, see the air coming through once all the little bubbles are gone. That's good. Clutch pedal feels good. Right, let's plug in our VCDS and see if our car knows what our pedals are doing. Ignition on, engine, 1.8 turbo, 5-cylinder. See if we've got any fault codes. Just some low voltage ones, that's a good sign. Get rid of them. Right, if we go to measuring blocks, let's have a look for our pedals. Brake pedal status, not operated. Press the pedal. Activated. So it knows we have a brake pedal. There's a throttle angle. When I put my foot down, that's moving. Here we are in 66 electronic throttle cruise control system. Our little bubble tells us the N2 are for brake lights. So if I press the brake, they should change. Yep, third one should be clutch. Yep, so it's seeing our clutch is working. Brake and clutch, all good. So all our pedals are talking to the ECU. So let's see if we can read ABS brakes on the Mk3 system. Should be able to, no reason why not. We're in. Couple of codes, get rid of them. And we should be able to get into the airbag as well. We go. Let's put our airbag light out. ABS is still on. Both rear sensors unplugged. So we'll look at that. But without our OBD port, we would not have a clue. We're all happy. We should start up. Perfect. So the bay is now looking pretty complete. Everything is piped up, everything's nice at the back there. The only thing we still have got to sort out is an air filter. We haven't got a lot of room here. For one, if you look how wide my hand is, the battery should be here. So you can see where the battery clamp is. So that should be in the center of the battery. So I've slid the battery as far forwards as I can, but that still doesn't give us a lot of room. What I've seen most people do is just do battery relocation to the boot and then just run a massive air filter here. You don't have this problem in the Mark II because the Mark II battery is here. So I don't know if we try and maybe turn the battery around, but then we've got our power steering reservoir here. I don't want to just put a tiny little filter in and restrict it, so we'll have to have a little think about that. If you've got any ideas on air filter or problem solving on this one, let me know, because all the Mark IIIs that I've seen that have been 20 valve turboed have just had the battery relocated. But if we can keep it here, that will be a lot easier. Right, so we have got all of our fluids, we've got all three pedals, we've got a gear stick, we've got a working engine. I think we should try and move it. So let's start it up and see if it'll drive forwards. Its first actual movements as a 20 valve turbo. Success! And the brakes work. Reverse. And it has done it. It is off its ramp and powered itself here with the 1.8 20 valve turbo engine. Well, it's made it outside. Nice to see it out of the workshop. Now go off, get its exhaust. happy in here.
And I would say that is mission complete. The task of today was to get this driving on its own, and we have made it from the ramp to here. So it's not a full test drive yet because, as you heard, we haven't got an exhaust system on at the moment. That is going to be its next trip out to get a full custom exhaust system made up. But today I've proved proof of concept and it works as a fully driving car. I am still amazed at how compatible these engines are to the Mk3 Golf. It has made it so easy, everything being almost plug and play, the clutch switch, the brake switch. If we had a bottom mount for the accelerator pedal as well, or gone down the Mk3 route with the TDI pedal box, it would have been a simple bolt together job. So like I said, you can buy bolt-in mounts for the drive-by-wire throttle pedal, exactly what I made. You can buy them off the shelf and bolt them straight in. So that is going to wrap up this episode. Really happy with progress. I'm really happy with the following that this Mk3 build has got. It's kind of revived the channel a little bit and boosted my enthusiasm for making videos for you guys. So like I said, it's booked in for an exhaust. It's going to be disappearing tomorrow, so this has all worked out perfectly in the timeline. So in the next episode, we're going to have a full exhaust system. We're just going to be buttoning up the last few little bits and then taking it for a full test drive on the road. So make sure you join me for that. Make sure you give this video a like. If you've only just stumbled across it now, we've got a full build series of this, which I'll link down in the description, so you'll be all caught up and up to date for the next episode. So I'll see you for that, but until then, make sure you have fun.